Mervyn Gordon once said, "No research is ever quite complete. It is the glory of a good bit of work that it opens the way for something still better, and this repeatedly leads to its own eclipse." A pleasant day to one and all. Welcome to Writing Research and Academic Papers, an international webinar for mathematics research writing and publication. I am your host for this very timely event, Mr. Reynaldo C. Collado Jr., also a mathematics teacher and researcher of Schools Division Office of Mandaluyong of Highway Hills Integrated School. To all the participants, make sure to be registered in the link that will be displayed on your screens. Research is a vital tool for solving problems. It provides an avenue for improvements, gives light to unending questions, and quenches our thirst for knowledge. The Schools Division Office of Mandaluyong, Mathematics Department, in collaboration with the Basic Education Mathematics Teachers Society Incorporated, or BEMTS, are the two organizations responsible for this momentous event. It is with great pride and honor to be a part of this wonderful endeavor, which intends to scholarly cultivate approaches to research writing and strengthen practices for critical research writing among the participants. For the knowledge of everyone, this is a webinar series, and today is just the first session of traversing the satisfying path of being a researcher. Make sure to answer the evaluation form at the end of the talk of our speaker to have your certificates. To verify your registration, kindly fill out the form posted on your screen for your attendance. Again, fill out the form posted on your screen for attendance. Thank you very much. Let me start by greeting the esteemed leaders of Schools Division Office of Mandaluyong. To our officer in charge, Office of the Schools Division Superintendent, Dr. Romela M. Cruz Sese. To our Assistant Schools Division Superintendent, Dr. Aurelio G. Alfonso. To the Chief Education Supervisor of Curriculum Implementation Division, Dr. Aline G. Mendoza. To the Chief of School Governance and Operations Division, Mrs. Emma G. Arubio. To the proponents of this endeavor, the Education Program Supervisor in Mathematics, Mr. Restituto I. Rodelas, and to the President of Basic Education Mathematics Teachers Society, Dr. Rodolfo T. Aunzo Jr., distinguished guests, fellow educators, and math researchers. A math amazing day to each and every one of us. To begin, may I request everyone to stand as we sing the Philippine National Anthem, to be followed by a prayer by Miss Jessa Marie M. Alejo, mathematics teacher at Andres Bonifacio Integrated School.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Sayang magiliw, pero sa silanganan, alam ng puso, sa dikit mo'y buhay. Lupang pinirang, kaya ka nang magiting, sa mandulong. Di ka masisingil sa naganap tungkol sa simulan sa langit ang pagkaw ay hinagap gagawin sa pagkayang minamahal. Nabis lang ang katawan mo'y tagumpay na nagtitigil. Bakit tuwing nakaroon niya kailan ang hindi magtitigil? Lumanang araw ng walang pagsikap ay natin sa piling mo. Ang ligaya ng karmay pag-aami at mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Let us bow our head and put ourselves into the holiness of God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
This webinar is not going to be possible without the efforts and initiative of this person. He, for me, is a man of his words and a man of inspiration. To introduce our high-caliber speaker, let us all welcome the EPS in Mathematics of SDO Mandaluyong, Mr. Restituto I. Rodelas.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ray Collado Jr. To our Officer in Charge, Schools Division Superintendent, Dr. Romela M. Cruz. To our OIC ASDS, Dr. Aurelio Alfonso. To our Chief Education Supervisor for Curriculum Implementation Division, Dr. Aline G. Mendoza. To our Chief Education Supervisor for Schools, Governance, and Operation Division, Ma'am Emma Rubio. To my friend, the President of the Basic Education Mathematics Teacher Society Incorporated, Dr. Rodolfo Onso. To all CID and SGOD officials and staff, to all the school heads, math teachers from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao who are watching us right now, good morning to everyone. Our speaker this morning is a lecturer at Monash University, Australia. She is the author of renowned publications published in international journals. She is also a journal reviewer for the Australian Journal of Educational Technology, Mathematics Education Research Journal, International Journal of Gender, Science, and Technology. She is a member of Mathematics Education Research Group of Australasia, Australian Association of Mathematics Teachers, and Association of Mathematics Educators, Singapore. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give our virtual round of applause to Dr. Hazel Tan. Dr. Hazel Tan, good morning, magandang buhay.
Thank you very much, Professor Rusty, for a very nice introduction. And magandang buhay, Filipinas. I'm very happy to be sharing with you about academic writing. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this session on writing papers in mathematics education, the literacy aspect of academic writing. My name is Dr. Hazel Tan. I'm with the Faculty of Education at Monash University. So this is in Melbourne, Australia. So I'm not sure whether you've been to Melbourne, but you're most welcome to contact me and maybe visit the university after all this COVID is, over, and if you're able to come. So most welcome. So now that you've seen me, and I'm going to resize my video so that you can see my PowerPoint. And I'm also using Zoom as a recording platform, just so that you can see my face and the PowerPoint. So magandang araw and salamat. Thank you very much for inviting me to this session, the REP session on writing, researches, and academic papers. So here I just want to extend my greetings to the following officials, Dr. Romelia, Dr. Aurelio, Dr. Aldin, Mrs. Sammer, Professor Resti, and Dr. Rodolfo, as well as the team at the Basic Education Mathematics Society. So I'm very happy that you invite me, and I'm very happy to speak to everyone through this video. So what I'm going to talk about today is about what to write, for academic papers, where to submit, maybe some ideas, and what to prepare, how to write, and some resources. So it won't be a 1.5 hours. So I think, you need time to think about it and maybe try out some writing. Hopefully, this session can inspire you to think of and submit some papers, academic papers. So the first thing is what to write. Okay, so I think as teachers, right, mathematics teachers, these days, as part of the teaching profession, we, need to do some improvement on our teaching, because the world has changed. It's always changing, and we also have to keep up with our the teaching strategies to improve our students' learning. And the kind of students that we get is also changing. The curriculum that we are teaching is also changing. So there's a lot of things that we can do research about, or inquiry, or to find out about how to improve the teaching and how to improve students' learning in mathematics. So, for example, I just want to show you that this is from the Victorian Institute of Teaching. So Victoria is the state in Australia that I'm in, where Melbourne is in. So the teachers have to go through some sort of registration in order to become fully qualified teachers to be able to teach in schools. So as part of their qualification, right, they need to do an inquiry. So, this is about investigating their own teaching and trying to improve on that. So the first step, if you think about it, the first step is, what is it that you want to investigate? Is it a strategy? Is it a teaching strategy? What is the content and the context of that, for learning? Who are the students? What is it that you want to look at? Okay, to investigate. So it could be, for example, maybe flipped classroom or online teaching methods. Maybe you find some ways that you want to try out with your students. So the next step is define the questions and for inquiry and undertake the professional learning. So what are the questions that you want to answer or find out about, and how do you go about learning or finding out more about this? Because before you start to try out different things, you should find out about it, maybe through reading the journals or attending conferences. Maybe somebody has inspired you something at a previous conference, and you want to find out more about it. So, so you have to go and find out and learn more about it. You have to do some reading. Maybe you can search the Google Scholar for some literature. You can talk to other people, your peers, or find out about what research have others conducted in this area. So that's the step 3. What do other research studies say about this topic that you are investigating? What do you plan to do? Maybe it's you and the team of teachers. So usually, when we try out something small, maybe it's on our own, but if you want to extend it a bit more, you probably work with other teachers, work with your colleagues. So you apply the knowledge to teaching practice through an action plan. So after you read more about it and you find out, and then you say, okay, you want to try something. So what do you plan to do? What is your action plan? So in your action plan, you have to think of, when, where, what, how you're going to conduct this certain teaching strategy, for example. The other thing to think about in your action plan is what evidence do you need to collect? When I say evidence, it doesn't mean that for sure it will work. So evidence is just the data. What kind of data do you want to collect from your students, maybe from yourself, from the teachers, to help you to answer the question? Okay. Of course, when you try some teaching strategy, you are hoping that it will work, but it may not. There may be some considerations. There may be further things to think about, things that you can learn and improve on the next time. So you have to think about what kind of, maybe it's the assessment, maybe it's interview the students, or, it could be other ways to collect the information. Okay, then step 4, you have to implement the action plan. So you have to go and try out that teaching strategy that you're thinking of. And then the step 5 is, how effective is it? So after you tried out, you collected all your data and information, you want to reflect and evaluate the effectiveness of this practice. What is the impact on students' learning? Is it useful? Is this strategy? How did you find it? Are there anything to take note of that you didn't expect? How do teachers and students feel about this? What are the attitudes? So sometimes it's not just the cognitive, which is the learning or the outcome. Sometimes it's also about the affective, which is the emotions or perspectives. Because, as we know, the motivation, students' motivation will affect their engagement and attitude towards mathematics. And that's pretty important as well. So whatever it is, it has to be linked back to your research question or your, the questions that you want to find out at the beginning. So that's why it all has to flow. And sometimes it's a cycle. That means after you evaluate, you might go back to step 1 and think about, okay, how do I improve this based on the previous round? What is when the next time I try this, what is it that I want to change? So this is part of a methodology, which is like a teacher practitioner research, or they call it like action research, or learning, experiential learning, for example. So there are different ways, different terms of talking about this, or inquiry approach, but each of them has a slightly different meaning, which you need to find out more if you want to use the terms that I was just talking about. So you need to go and find out more. Okay, but basically, I'm just sharing one example of the inquiry approach that you probably are doing as part of your teaching, but maybe it's not so formalized. It's not so structured or documented. So in order to share what you find with other teachers in a more academic and professional way, you have to sort of write up some papers or present at a conference, and these are the steps you probably go through. Okay, so next, where to submit? If you're thinking of academic writing, right? So, the first, I'm just going from, local to become more global. So in the local situation, you probably have your school newsletters or magazines, or your school website, for example, or the cluster or network of schools. Maybe you have a group of schools that come together to exchange ideas and share with each other. So in that case, you can also write academic sort of a paper to share. So in all these situations, it's a good way to get started writing, especially if you're not so familiar with writing. As I know, like mathematics and science teachers, sometimes we may not be so comfortable with writing a lot of essays. So that's a good way to get started. At the next level is sort of at your national level, for example, or regional level. So you could have attend some conferences that you're thinking of. It could be virtual conference, it could be face-to-face conference. For these sort of conferences, usually they will require you to submit a conference paper. And a conference paper can range from, say, 4 pages to 8 pages of writing. So you have to go to the conference website and find out what is the requirements. So certainly conferences is a good way to also present your ideas at an informal event. And the good thing is you can also meet other people in the conference. And then you can exchange more ideas. So, and teacher professional journals. So these journals are actually targeted at teachers. So it will most likely be organized by the Teachers Association. So there are, for example, the Australian Association of Mathematics Teachers. So in Australia, the teachers do sign up for to become professional members of the association, and then they get the journal regularly. So they could also write and submit papers to the journals. So, and academic journals, of course, are so these are aimed at the mathematics education researchers. So it is definitely more demanding in the rigor of the research, in the kind of research requirements. It has to be rigorous and, recognized as academic research. Okay, and also the writing has to be quite rigorous as well in academic journals. So, so if you are doing, if you are early career or if you are really experienced in writing academic papers, then you can certainly try and look at academic journals. So, but for university teacher educators, sometimes it is a requirement to submit papers at the academic journals as part of our profession. And that we need to write scholarly writing and engage in the community. So after saying, giving you a brief list of different places to consider to submit your paper, you have to think about, where to submit. Is this the right place to submit my paper? So it's the same for conference or journals. So what is the conference theme? So for example, if it's a conference, what is the focus area? Is it a mathematics education conference? Is it a general education conference? What are the areas? Does it fit what I'm trying to do? So does my research fit any of these areas of strengths? So my example is this Asian Technology Conference in Mathematics, which is held at the end of the year annually in different parts of Asia, I think. And of course, as the name says, it's a technology conference in maths. So if your research is not relating to technology, then you don't need to, apply to go to this conference. So, but I'm just giving you this as an example because I've been to this conference, and I'm just showing you here the what some of the criteria. So if you look at a conference and you say, okay, maybe I want to submit a paper to this conference, you will have to look at the criteria. What did they say? So you have to go to the website or talk to the secretariat, for example. So here it says it cannot be something that you have published before. So generally, for all the publications, it should be sort of original work by you. So, and you have to also see the requirements and what happens after after the conference, will the proceedings be published, or is it unpublished? Will the papers be refereed, meaning that somebody else will read your paper, review it, and say whether, okay, are you accepted for the full paper, which means that your paper will be in the proceedings, or is it maybe a poster presentation, meaning that your paper is not in the proceedings, but you will be presenting, your abstract will be in the proceedings, for example. So this will also, the outcome also affects the how your paper will be used. Because let's say if it's a poster presentation, then it's not published, right? Then you can actually use the paper to submit to somewhere else. Yeah, because it has not been published. Okay, so coming back to, is this the right place? So let's say for a journal. So again, for journal, you also have to look at the scope and the aim of the journal. So what do they say? Are they specifically asking for US, let's say maybe a US conference, a US journal? Or, do they accept international, and have they published anything related to your area? So you have to go and look at the journal and search for the publications to see whether is there anything relating to your topic. Okay. So, all right, here at this point in time, I want to just caution you, okay, to be careful. You know how sometimes there are those scam messages or emails. So there is such a thing as a predatory journal. That means, as the word says, it preys on unsuspecting victims. Okay. So what are these kind of journals? So these kind of journals actually, they will sort of email you and say, oh, I have seen your paper, presented somewhere, and we think that you can write something for them. And, they'll sound very proactive to try and get you to publish with them. But you realize that actually you have to pay some money to them to get your stuff published. And then after that, there's no news. So they just earn money from people paying them to publish stuff, but actually their journal itself is unrecognized, or maybe known as a predatory journal, and there's no quality control. So people, no peer review, or maybe they might fake it. So some of these things you have to be aware of. So in other words, just be careful when journals just ask people to pay them for whatsoever to publish. But of course, having said that, there are journals that are reputable but are open access. And because they're open access, they require some money to, for it to be open access. So because usually if it's not open access, then university libraries, institutions will have to subscribe to the publisher to get access to the papers. So if it's open access, so the subscription doesn't work, so they have to make money in another way. So hence, these also require some money, but they are not predatory. So, all right, let's just look at one example. So if you go to a journal, later I'll give you a list of some of the journals that you can look at, or reputable ones in maths education. So like, for example, this one is the Mathematics Education Research Journal. So if you go into the journal itself, the website, you will see like submission guidelines, ethics, disclosure, fees and funding, contact the journal. So it is by Springer, and Springer is a reputable sort of publisher. So you know that, okay, this journal is okay. And in fact, it's quite a high-ranking journal in mathematics education. So high-ranking meaning that, it's hard to get in, it's hard to publish something in it. So here they even tell you, 68 days submission to the first decision. So more than 2 months after you submit the paper, they will tell you, okay, to get a decision. And this decision could be, sorry, we don't think that this is suitable, or it requires more work, So it could be a rejection, could be a major revision, minor revision, or just accept. But very highly unlikely that anybody's paper will just get accepted straight away. Usually there's some minor kind of revision, major revision, or even rejection, because certain high-ranking journals can have very high rejection rates. So, and they say that it's about 264 days submission to acceptance. So this means that it takes about maybe nearly a year to get papers submitted, published. So, that's why it's more for, academics like lecturers, teacher educators working in university to submit papers to high-ranking journals. For teachers, I would say if you want a quick turnaround, usually it's like conference, to share your ideas. So conference papers or, school magazines, etc., like what I said earlier. So, and this, sometimes on average, it will take maybe around, 2 years, because it might be rejected in one journal, you submit to another journal, take another nearly a year to get submitted, to get accepted, and so on. So you can try a few times before your paper get accepted and published. So that's for academics and for academic journals. So these are some examples of maths education teacher journals and teacher journals. So some are open access in the sense that they might have, when you go into the journal, you can actually look at the other people's papers published there if you don't have a subscription. So, and then some are non-peer review, meaning that they didn't send it out. So as long as the editors agree, then, you might get, your paper might get published. But of course, the standing in terms of the rigor and so on, it may or may not be that high. So this is just for you to take reference of. So, reputable publishers will include like Springer, Routledge, Taylor and Francis, mathematics teacher associations, they will have their journals, or universities will also have their, some universities have, in charge of or created journals, and they manage it. So these are reputable places to publish in. So, okay, so once you confirm where you want to submit your paper, so what is the format required? So you have to go to, guidelines for authors, or to check the criteria or submission. This is same for conference and journal. So you have to see things like the font size, how many pages, what is the limit? You need to keep to the limit, otherwise they may not even look at it. How many words? Maybe there's a word count limit. What is the referencing style that they say to use? Because different places have different styles. Generally, in education, we use what is called the APA, which is by the American Psychological Association. And the current edition is the APA 7th edition. So that's the usual sort of format for education. But different papers have slightly different requirements that you have to check. So the best is if there's a template for you to download and use. Maybe there's a Word document that you can just type over it, or copy and paste what you have typed into that template, and then you can submit using that template. And there's a guidelines. Always follow the guidelines. This is very important because it shows that you're committed. It shows your part of the academic and the scholarly work that you're doing. So people then will look at the paper that you submitted. If it doesn't follow the guidelines, then people will think that you're not serious. So they may not even spend the time to look at it. So another important thing is to also look at past papers. So if you can look at other, past year conference papers, for example, for this conference that you're attending, is there past year papers that you can look at. Is there a paper that is similar to the topic that you're doing? So maybe you are doing a survey or something at the end. So is there another paper that is similar to survey? Maybe you're doing flipped classroom. For example, I'm just using that as an example just off the top of my head. So if you're using that, is there a paper that's on the same topic but slightly different focus, that you can refer to? So what did they say? How did they write? Look at the structure. Download some of these and use for guide as a guide. And then you look at the requirements. So what are the sections? How long is each section of the papers? So usually there are a few sections that are that you will see in all the papers. So it will be like an introduction, a literature review, the methods, research methods, or the approach or research design. Sometimes people also call it the methodology, the results and discussion, and the conclusion. And sometimes results and discussion are separate, but sometimes they are together. So I'll just quickly go through each of these. So, but before that, let's look at an abstract. So check out the number of words required in the abstract. So usually you will submit an abstract first to, let's say, a conference, and then when they say, okay, based on the abstract, it looks like they can accept you to be, your paper is accepted to be in a conference, then you can submit the full paper then there will be a deadline given. So check out the number of words. Is it 150 words, 100 words, 250 words? Sometimes it could be, there's a range of it. And basically, the abstract will also have a similar format as the papers. And with these parts, so there are 4 parts to it. So there's a situation leading to a problem or focus. There's the methods, which is like a methods or procedure or approach. How do you go about what kind of what has been done for this research, and then the results or findings, and then there's the 4th part, which is the conclusion or implications, which sometimes people ignore it if the abstract is too short. So let's do a quick activity. All right, so I put here a sample conference abstract that I done. So see whether you can see the parts 1 to 4 in this example. So the parts 1 to 4 I put at the top of the slide so that you can see. And here I'll recommend you to pause the video for a short while and sort of read through the abstract and see whether you can figure out if there are 4 parts to it and where are they. Okay, I hope that the video has been paused and then unpaused. So now I'll show you the next part. So I hope that you've seen and you can find out, then you can figure out the 4 parts to it. And by the way, this is 142 words. So it's, the limit is 150 words for this conference. So you can see that the first part, which is highlighted in yellow, we're talking about the situation or the problem, basically it's to tell people why is it important to look at what you're investigating? Why is your topic important or significant? Because, mathematics education is such a big area. So in a way, the first part is sort of to go from, to explain why is it important to investigate this topic. Or maybe people already know that this is an important topic. You might start off with COVID, and online teaching. Maybe online teaching is very important, and you're now looking at a particular teaching strategy using online teaching, for example. So, so that's in yellow. In green, in this large-scale survey study, students, Singaporean students were asked about their most preferred mode. So this is a survey study. It tells you. So in a way, it is like the methods. Like, okay, what is it that you're trying to find out, and what did you do? Okay. So the third part is, what was the result? Some main results. It was found that. So you can see some of the words used, the wording or the phrases used, that you can follow that kind of structure. So it was found that most students prefer this and that. And then there's the implication. The fourth part on teaching is that the teachers must do this or whatever. So what is the implication? So you use certain keywords. And after reading a few papers or some papers from that conference or from the journal, you give you an idea about what are the words that link the ideas together. And these linking words are very important to take note and to be able to use them, so that when people read your paper, they will be able to get the idea and get the flow of ideas. They know what you're trying to say, because there's the linking words to link those ideas together. Okay, so that's the abstract. So it is also useful to submit the abstract to a journal first, to see to the journal editor to say whether, okay, this is my study. Would this be of interest to the journal? Because sometimes journal might say, oh, this is not our focus. Please, submit elsewhere, for example. So having the abstract is the first part. So now I'm come to writing the actual paper itself. So let's look at the introduction. So the introduction, you have to introduce the situation, the context. It leads to the problem that you are, that you have researched. So like at the end of it, you will have the research questions. So you also need to include citations from references. So if you look at, other people's journal articles, you will see that they will always cite the reference. Okay, so you need to, for every idea that you get from somewhere else, is it a report or is it from, some other papers, you always cite the reference. So do not plagiarize, which is copy and paste from other sources. So you need to rephrase it and cite them. So if you want, you can also get a direct quote, which is like a phrase, or you just leave the phrase, but you must use a direct quote format to say that, oh, I'm actually quoting from this particular paper. So, and joining the conversation. So this is important in the sense that you need to know what's going on in the community. Okay, whether is it a conference or is it a journal, there is always a group of people talking about this topic that you are investigating. Okay, it should not be a totally new area, because if it's too new, people may not think that it's relevant for them. I mean, for the conference or for the journal. So there will be a group of people talking about it. So it's like joining this conversation. So you need to listen to what other people have said about this first. Then you can contribute your voice and say, okay, this is what I'm going to, I know you've said this, and I agree with this and this, but this is what I have investigated, and this is what I found. So, So the one structure for introduction is to zoom in from the global to the local. So in worldwide, what is the situation? And then, it's happening in different countries. There's, different people use different methods and so on. And then you go down to local, maybe in the Philippines, what has been done, what's been done so far. So then you can give examples from the conference or from the journal relating to maybe literature in the Philippines or in Asia, say. Always use a topic sentence. So this one is just writing in general for the whole paper. So you know, there's always one idea per paragraph, and then the main idea will be in the first sentence. Yeah, so let's have a quick look. Maybe I'll pause here first. I'll talk about the writing process. There are different ways that people write, you know. What one way you can that people do so far is just dump your ideas down onto the Word document or onto a paper. So just write like a brain dump. That's what they say. Just write whatever that's in your head. Just put everything down. And then as you write, your ideas will come, and then you think about different things. You put it down in writing. That's the first stage. The second step is to organize these ideas into, you know, with headings or with one idea per paragraph, and you edit it and to make it look nicer. So, and then the last phase or the last step is to actually cross the I's, dot the T's, and, you know, check out the referencing format, make sure everything follows the style. You have no spelling mistake, you know, grammatical errors, etc. So it's just the you know, beautifying it at the last step. So mainly these three stages in the writing. So don't worry too much about the topic sentence and so on until the second step. The first step is just to put everything down, okay, about your study, about your research study, what happened, what's the findings, and so on. So topic sentence. So here you can, another example here from a paper that I've co-written with a colleague. So what do you notice here? So the first sentence, students' beliefs about interest in and effective responses to school mathematics have been found to influence the decision to continue or not to continue with mathematics into their senior secondary and tertiary years. So the main idea is that the students' beliefs and their interests and effective responses affects their decision. So that's the main idea in this paragraph. In the next sentence, talks about beliefs, because we mentioned about beliefs first, right? So beliefs about mathematics include, you know, this and this, and then we had the reference, and then the attitudes or the interests, you know, and the liking of the subjects and so on is also found by somebody else, you know. Then we reference that the other reference that affected their decision whether to take maths or not in the higher levels. And then and how about their beliefs? So their beliefs and all these are influenced by the teachers and the teachers' teaching approaches. So that's very important. So it's also relating to the beliefs again. So and you notice here that we have two references here to say that, you know, it's affected by the teachers. So students' beliefs and the attitudes are affected by the teachers. So so you can see here, this is how, you know, in just an example, you can look at other examples, other papers. So that was the part of like introduction. You got to establish the importance of this area that you are looking at. Okay, how to write the literature review. So the next part is literature review. So literature is the body of knowledge and the papers, you know, the ideas, things that have been done by other researchers, other teachers, teacher educators, lecturers, etc. You need to know that, you know, demonstrate that you know the previous research in that area. You must include links to academic references. So you can include conference papers or peer-reviewed conference papers, journals, articles, government reports, for example, or books or book chapters. So try not to use like blogs or popular media, you know, more non-academic or even grey sort of literature. So minimize those, try to make it academic. So link to what others say in the same conference or journals. This is also very important. So as I mentioned before, you need to be part of that conversation, right? So you need to link to what other people say to show that, oh, you're actually, you know, part of that group. you're listening to what other people have said, and then you're joining in to their conversation. Analyze the literature and write according to themes. So, to do this right, you also have to spend a bit of time. First, you need to search for and download those relevant literature, and then you have to read them. And then as you read, right, you look at what methodology, what theories did they use, how did they research this topic, what did they find? So you need to jot down all these notes, and you need to group and categorize them. So maybe, maybe for something to investigate this certain topic, certain researchers found this, and then other researchers found something else. Maybe it's opposite or didn't work for them, and they explain why, for example. Then you have to group them together to say, okay, pros and cons. Maybe that's how you're going to write it. So basically, you have to group them into categories or themes or ideas. So do not write a laundry list. There's a tendency to start with, like, so-and-so said this, so-and-so said that. You can start out with this at the beginning, because remember we said we have different stages in the writing, right? So at the first stage, where you just dump everything into your document, into your writing, you just, you can say, okay, A said this, B said that. But after that, when you tidy things up, you put things together, you have to organize into the themes. So the information is more important than who did this study. Okay, so so if you go back to here, this example that I used earlier, we said researchers have found that how students view mathematics is influenced by their teachers. So, and then we put the reference at the end. So we didn't say, oh, McFadden et al. Found this. Then Preto and Duga found this. We didn't do that. So we try and combine the information together to say what we want to say. The information is important, the knowledge, then you refer to them in brackets, that cite the references. So that's how we do it. So you can look at other people's writing and how they write. I'm not saying that don't have this at all. Sometimes people do say that because, whatever this person's finding is very important. You want to recognize that. So it's okay to put their names there. But it's just that if your whole lit review is written in this way, then that's not academic. that's not good enough in that sense. You need to organize them into themes. Okay. Next section is on the methods. So I've just quickly talked about the lit review just now. How to write methods. Explain what you did. So in the research methods or the methods section, you have to explain what you did in your research so that the readers can repeat your study if they want to do so. So you need to include details, don't just say, oh, I've collected this information, but how, when, who are the people, who are these students, who are the participants, how is this data and what kind of data were collected, okay? How is this data analyzed? What did you use to analyze? You need to give the steps. You cannot just say, oh, this student interviews were analyzed and these are what we found. That's not quite enough, because people cannot repeat what you've said, what you've done, and they may not believe what you say. So, they need to be able to repeat it, okay? If they have the same data or different data, they can repeat your research. So if you're investigating, for example, a teaching strategy or intervention, then you also need to describe in detail what it is about. So I think I mentioned about flipped classroom just earlier. So you cannot just assume people know what flipped classroom is, or whether the way you conduct the flipped classroom, is it the same as what other people have done it, okay? Or your online teaching, which software did you use? How did you teach? online, for example, what did you do exactly? Don't assume that other people know what you're thinking or what you have done. You need to explain it. So you need to also talk about, like, if you have different kinds of research design, right? You need to refer to books or articles on how to do research or research design. For example, is it a quantitative kind of study, which the kind of data that you collect is quantitative data, which is like students' grades, for example, or survey where you have strongly agree to strongly disagree, and then you code it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you do the mean and so on. You can do some statistical analysis for quantitative data. Qualitative study or qualitative data that people collect would be those like the text or open-ended kind of questions that has sort of text qualitative kind of study, and you will, and then there are different ways to analyze that, like thematic analysis, content analysis, narrative inquiry, etc. There's so much out there, different kind of research methods, or even mixed methods. So if you're collecting both quant and qual type of data, then how are you going to analyze each type of data, and how are you going to combine the findings for each of these? So so that is to talk about this actually requires like a course or unit on research methods. So there are books on this that you can invest in, getting a book on research methods, and then referring to that book if you have, or different ways of conducting research. So you have to talk about this and link to this when you write your methods section. Next, how to write the results and discussion. So as I mentioned earlier, there are different kinds of studies or research designs. Each of these will have different ways of writing up the results and discussion. So, for example, in quantitative, sometimes people will separate the results and discussion as separate sections. In qualitative, there's a tendency for people to combine, and then you talk about, okay, your results, what did you find? And then you discuss it in relation to the literature. What did other people find? What did you find? Compare and contrast, the results. So basically, what you need to know is that results is what you find from analyzing the data. Stick to the data. Okay, what does it tell you about the students, or tell you about the intervention that you're using, or the teaching strategy? The discussion is to interpret these results, okay, and link them to the literature. So what does it mean? Okay, you cannot just say that, definitely this strategy is 100% useful, or works well or improve the students' learning, because as with any research regarding people, and people are quite dynamic and complex, so you cannot be 100% sure that it will work every time with any students. So you will have to be tentative. You will say, based on the finding, it seems that this particular teaching approach would be useful for students who are doing this and whatever. So just be aware of overgeneralizing your findings, your results, your conclusion, so don't overgeneralize. So be tentative a bit. Okay, it seems that, perhaps this strategy will be useful in this situation, for example. So so again, if you're not sure, look at past papers, or for example, what are some of the ways that people say about their results, and how do they actually write up the discussion as well. So the last section of your paper would be the conclusion. So the conclusion, right, is actually going back to your research question. So you can talk about the answer to your research question. So these research questions or questions, depending on your study, you have to answer them again. So you know what you put in the introduction. So it sort of joins the whole of your paper. So and the points in your discussion should sort of combine. Some of them can answer the research question. You might have other results, other points to take note. You know, so it's sort of like conclude your whole paper. And here is where you can also discuss the implications of your findings for teaching, for policy, for the curriculum, you know, or for parents, if you are, you know, researching parents' views or something, or limitation of the study. Okay, maybe you think, okay, for future, I would include this direction for future research. And what is the limitation? Because there are always some sort of limitation. Even maybe the number of people is quite small, you know, it's just limited to this situation in this school. And then you can try out different, you know, the directions. You can actually conduct this study in other school, in other contexts, and that could support, you know, the body of knowledge further. So basically, that's how you sort of conclude. And here, I would also like to recommend this article or this open access book. It's called A Compendium for Early Career Researchers in Maths Education. So the DOI, it's also in the next, the last slide where I put up the resources. So it has different chapters by different established academics who are journal editors of some high-ranking journals as well, or professors in maths education. So they will talk about like scholarly writing, how to write for particular high-ranking journals, what are people looking out for beginning early career researchers. So I highly recommend you to download and look through the different chapters of this book. Okay, so final words. So yeah, you know, one presentation is definitely not enough. So what I hope that today I've given you a short taste about, you know, one of the things to look out for, or basic essentials or parts to writing academic articles or papers. So scholarly writing is a craft, and there's a science and an art to it, because the science, sometimes you can analyze and see, okay, what are the structure? What is the, you know, what are the sections to it? What is the structure to this paper? The art is the actual writing, because you have your own way of expressing, of talking, of writing. And it's a bit like teaching, you know, the more that you try and improve and you have a growth mindset to it, okay, that means you think that, okay, we don't start out with being good writers, we just learn as we go along. Teaching is the same also, you know, the more we experience, the more we want to try and approach it with the idea that we are just learning and we are still learning. Then you know, you be kind to yourself, okay? Start small, start local, work in the team. That would be good, because you can encourage each other and you know, contribute different ideas. And sometimes I find that the best writing is actually with my colleagues, when we bounce ideas with each other, when we try and write together. And that's where the best ideas form, and you know, the best writing that comes out of it. So yeah, so I had this picture of of me climbing up the rock with the rope and so on, just to tell you that, oh, actually it's not, you know, nothing, it's a smooth process, but it is something, you know, challenging, exciting, but worthwhile to do, because you will then, you know, share your ideas with others in a way that is academic, being part of that community, the academic community. So all the best to you, and yeah, feel free to email if you have any further questions or comments or any feedback about today's session, and I hope you have benefited from it. Yeah, and I look forward to seeing all of you in future if there's a possibility for me to visit. Uh, and all the best. Yeah. And finally, I'll just show you the resources. So you can take a screenshot if you like of this, and then you can go back and check. And I think I will also email a copy of this PowerPoint, to the organizers, and then maybe you might get hold of a copy of my PowerPoint as well. So, yep. Have a good day. Maganda araw.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hazelton, for that wonderful sharing of knowledge about writing mathematics researches. Surely, we will apply this in our future endeavors regarding mathematics and research. This time, let us award the Certificate of Recognition to our distinguished speaker. May I invite Dr. Tan for us to receive the certificate. Let me read to you the citation. Certificate of Recognition is hereby awarded to Dr. Hazel Tan for having served as a resource speaker during the webinar on writing researches and academic papers, International Webinar for Mathematics Research, Writing, and Publication, given this 14th day of December 2020 in the city of Mandaluyong. Signed, Dr. Rodolfo T. Aonjo Jr., President of BEMTS. Signed, Romela M. Cruz Sese, OIC SDS of Schools Division Office of Mandaluyong. Congratulations, Dr. Tan.
Yes, thank you very much, Salamat. Thanks for giving me the certificate. So I'm very happy to be presenting the talk. Let me just show you the certificate. Thanks very much. And looking forward to talking to you and seeing you online, and also in the next few sessions. I'll be looking out for it. Thanks.
To formally end this endeavor, let us all welcome the President of Basic Education Mathematics Teachers Society Incorporated, Dr. Rodolfo T. Alonzo Jr.
In behalf of the Basic Education Math Teachers Society, BMTS, I would like to thank everyone for joining the first session of our series webinar on writing research and academic papers. Special thanks to Dr. Hazel Tan from Monash University, Australia, our resource speaker. Thank you for generously sharing inputs on writing and publishing research paper. Your talk is indeed very meaningful and helpful to the basic education math teacher writers. This is another step to continue and finish their endeavor in writing and publishing their research papers. Also, thanks to DepEd Mandaluyong City Division. Thank you to their Assistant Schools Division Superintendent, Dr. Romela M. Cruz, and to their Education Program Supervisor, Mathematics Area, Mr. Reste Rudelas. Thank you for collaborating with us in realizing this webinar. Indeed, research paper writing is no longer a trend, but a top priority in every academic institution. In the area of mathematics education, research papers have made major contributions in solving problems or issues in mathematics classroom, mathematics teaching techniques and strategies, mathematics curriculum, and mathematics policies and administration, among others. Through research, we can investigate issues. We can delve on the causes and effects of the arising problems. In the long run, we can administer effective and efficient solutions to the problems. Inside the classroom, as math teachers, we can investigate, find out, and recommend solutions to arising problems on students' low mathematics performance. This 2018 international result on themes or the trends in international mathematics and science study revealed Philippines as lowest among 58 countries in mathematics and science. It states Thus, Trends in International Mathematics and Science Study 2019 shows Philippines scored significantly lower than any other country that participated in grade 4 math and science assessments. The Philippines only scored 297 in mathematics, which is significantly lower than any other participating schools. The study also found out that only 19% of Filipino students were on low benchmark, which means they have some basic mathematical knowledge, while 81% did not even reach this level. So, as math teachers, these results will serve as our benchmark or our springboard in conducting research on low math performance for students. We can look at several perspectives. We can examine the classroom management. We can discover new teaching techniques and strategies, or we can even innovate technologies to aid mathematics learning. To all math teachers who are attending this webinar today, let us all join our hands together to make our efforts step up to a new level. We thank everyone for sharing your time to learn with us today. Thank you again to our resource speaker, Dr. Hazel Tan, to DepEd Mandaluyong City Division. Thank you so much, and may God bless us always.
Thank you very much, Dr. Alonzo. Fellow researchers, please make sure to answer the evaluation form which can be seen on your screens. This will be another basis for you to claim your certificates. Math researchers, let us continue to imbue ourselves with curiosity to find answers to questions we don't know yet. This is your host, Sir Ray. Good day and see you soon.